Hi, everyone. In today's video, we have got another special guest with us. We have Hrushikesh Emkay, who is also called as Rishi. Rishi is a year 13 student, as I know, and he has been doing something really fascinating in payments as a part of his curriculum. And he's also looking to undergo a degree course after finishing his year 13. So I'm sure this conversation is going to be really exciting and useful for all the young people who are still maybe in school, maybe in higher classes, or maybe even in degree courses, to sort of hear from Rishi about his journey. And over to you, Rishi, if you want to just start with a quick introduction.
Yeah, hi guys, I'm Rishi. I'm currently a year 13 student. I study maths, further maths and computer science. And I think for the past few months, I've been working on this project of a payment gateway sort of thing, which sort of mimics what Visa does.
Fantastic. And Rishi, I think you have been watching some of the videos on my YouTube channel as well, right? And that's
Yes.
kind of how we connected.
Yeah.
That's really good to know. So did you find something useful in the channel? What helping you?
Yes, something very useful. I learned about settlement, which was actually quite fuzzy for me. Though I didn't exactly implement the exact settlement. I also managed to use the bank messaging system. I believe it's called the ISO, if I'm not mistaken. So how banks talk to each other, the bitmap and all that stuff. And I made a sort of rudimentary version of my own.
ISO is more like a standard, like which we use, right? So when two banks have to talk to each other, they may be using certain language, you can say, certain standards, right? So because otherwise it will be very difficult if everybody follows their own standards, right? Okay, that's really good. So why don't you talk about a little bit in detail about what is it that you were trying to do as a part of your the curriculum, the project that you're working on in payments?
Right. So essentially, I had to create a project for two reasons. One was for my NEA, it's a coursework for my computer science A level. And I also had to do it because universities like to see what I've been doing in computer science. I originally went on to look for different projects. I tried to find stuff that I was interested in. I looked for stuff like a quiz master or anything in machine learning. It wasn't particularly interesting, but I found payments interesting because, well, you go to a shop and you can buy groceries and you just have to tap a card. So it's quite magical. Basically, what my project does is it takes in your credentials. So it takes in your card number, it takes in your CVV, it takes in your expiry date, and it then passes it on to the merchant's bank. So merchant is basically the guy selling, and the merchant bank, it does some processing on it, and it passes it on to the gateway. And the gateway looks at, shoots the same request off to the customer's bank. So that's your bank. And then your bank checks whether you have the funds necessary for the payment. And it validates the payment. It doesn't finish it, it just validates it. That's the first half. The second half comes from the merchant, and the merchant basically says, okay,
sort of more of authorizing the payment.
I know I'm going to get my money. He knows that he's going to get his money, and he lets the customer walk out of his store. And then when the merchant wants his money back, the final funds being settled, he just sends a settlement request, which is basically like a list of all the transactions. And the acquirer bank looks at it, sends it to the gateway, and then settlement takes place.
A regular flow. Absolutely. I think and then I was kind of really excited to see young people like you talking about payments. I think that's the beauty of this domain. It really doesn't matter what background you have, whether you are a student, whether you are a professional, it's something that can be embraced by anyone. And the good thing with payments is, or rather the exciting part about payments again is that it's a very dynamic field. What is relevant today will be out of relevance tomorrow. It's rapidly evolving. So because if say for example a company like Visa implements a new technology, a new way of settling the transactions, let's say, which settles the transactions same day, then a MasterCard or some of the other providers also need to kind of implement that. And it's more like the competition is really, really huge here, particularly with a lot of fintechs coming in the market. If you look into the London geography also, there's a huge number of fintechs, small companies, who are working in and doing amazing things in payments. Some of them have become, pretty popular as well. But yeah, the point here is that it's more like we are living in a world today where everything is driven through an app. Everybody has a phone, and the phone has actually I think it would be fair to say that the phone has actually replaced your wallet today, right? I mean, I you would really find any money in my wallet, to be honest, and I'm not making it up. It's like, I don't know the last time when I had some good amount of cash in my wallet. I've been just using my phone to tap everywhere here, and all of the merchants accept it, and it makes life easy for everybody, for merchants, for me, and so with this kind of dramatic shift that we have seen in the way people are doing businesses, people are accepting money, doing transactions, paying to merchants. I think it's just that this is a really, really fascinating field. So again, you just started, and if let's say you are going to continue with your I'm sure you are going to continue with your computer science course. Again, payments is something that you can obviously you try to explore a bit more. Who knows, you might end up working in payments down the line after finishing your degree course. So that's one thing I just wanted to call it out, and also maybe for the benefit of our viewers, that if you can do it, they can do it as well.
Yeah, and for the viewers as well, my project isn't something that's very advanced. It's not something that you don't need to be a computing genius to do this. It is fairly basic. It's all written in Python. It does use databases, it does use encryption, and it was quite challenging. Like the entire concept of using a server and networking that was quite difficult. But I think that's like the whole domain of computer science, where you will find problems. It's all about tackling them.
Sure.
Yeah.
And how talking about computer science, you mentioned that you have used Python as well. So maybe let's talk a little bit about what kind of things do you undergo as a part of your curriculum right now in school? Because I remember when I was probably of your age, or maybe a little younger than you, then at that point in time, we just were very new to computers, in general, and we were living in an era where I think we had, when I was in college, we had C++, and those kind of things. But then back in the early days when I was in school, we were looking at BASIC. There was a language called as BASIC that we study, and computer was really this big thing, and we were all like fascinated looking at the desktop, those big desktops that we used to have. I used to keep the air conditioning on all the time in the computer labs, just to make sure that those don't go out of order. So how and cut to today, and when I'm talking to somebody like you who's just embarking and starting his journey into college next year, what do you do as a part of your college curriculum? What kind of things do you study? What do you think is really required for somebody like people like you of your age to sort of, if they are into computer science, or if they are into IT stream, or they want to study computer science and IT down the line, what are the kind of things that they should be focusing on?
So So that was like two questions. So the first question is like, what do I learn in college? And what I learned in college is, well, I learned a programming language.
Okay.
So all students are required to learn one programming language. That might be Python, C++, Java. It really depends on the school. And after that, you have stuff like algorithms. So merge sort, you have binary search. We have a couple of topics on data structures as well. So binary trees, graphs, uh, Dijkstra's algorithm, stacks, queues, that sort of thing. You aren't expected to implement this in Python or any other programming language, but they do teach it so that you have some theoretical background. Following that, you have stuff on regular languages, so regular expressions, mealy machines. You have networking, you have how the internet works. You also have stuff on internal computer hardware. So how does the processor work? How do stuff like cameras and printers work? What else do you have? You have, yeah, that is about it. Yeah, that's about it. And stuff, I think everyone who wants to like get into computing is, you do need to learn programming. I think a lot of people underestimate that. And a lot of people, they take the excuse of learning HTML and CSS and say, oh, yes, I know how to code. No, you should pick up a stronger language like Python. And Python is easy to get. After Python, you have stuff. I think learning to program is far easier now than it was like 6 years ago. 6 years ago, you had C, C++, and Java, but now you have easier languages like Python. And Python could do anything. So if you can get a hand of Python, and then you learn a little bit about algorithms, and not any key algorithms, but mostly that there is a neater way of doing this, and there are different approaches to solving a problem. I think that sort of understanding and doing a lot of projects which interest you, that will like really expose you more than any curriculum. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Python is something that is really, really critical in today's times, and the fact that it's used across, right? It's scripting language, and you can do variety of things with that. You can automate things. You can do data analysis. It's widely used in fields like data science today. So I think it's fair to say that if somebody is looking into building a career in computer science, IT, then Python is something that is indispensable. But that said, what do you think, according to you, are some of the first steps that somebody should take when it comes to learning Python? Where should somebody start from? What do you think is okay? Like, this is the very easy thing to do. Let's start from here, and then we can build one step from there, one step on the other.
Right. So my first advice to anyone learning Python or anyone learning how to code is to not buy the courses. Don't go to a paid course. Don't go to anyone who says, if you pay me X amount of money, I will teach you Python. Because there are so many free online resources out there that you can use to learn Python. I learned Python only through YouTube channels. So I use YouTube channels like Centex. He's a very prominent Python YouTuber. He does a lot of machine learning stuff. Derek Banas, he has quite a couple of very good tutorials. So he has like Python in one video, Java in one video. The New Boston, he used to be a very famous YouTuber. I think he was like the godfather for all. He was the inspiration for everyone who was starting off computing YouTube.
Sure.
And he had very nice tutorials. And learn those languages. And there is always a point when you have to stop learning the language. So I think until you finish functions, learn how arrays work, and then I'd say take a break from that. So stop there and think about all the knowledge you've learned and start applying it. I think the best beginner project in Python is definitely a calculator app where you can like calculate two numbers, because that essentially covers up a lot of very important things. So if statements, looping, adding two numbers together, variables. It's a very basic project, but it tells you the basics. And after that, I think it's very important that you actually solve programming problems. And these are like very short problems. So you can go to websites like HackerRank or Project Euler
Sure.
or Code Forces. I use Code Forces and try and solve the problems there. And I will be very honest, it is very difficult at the beginning because you watch the tutorials and you're like, okay, this isn't that hard. But when it actually comes to implementing it, that's a whole new thing.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
takes time, and they are quite difficult problems. But trying to solve them on your own, Googling your errors, never be afraid to Google or ask someone.
Sure.
That will build you up. So after you solve a couple of problems, and that will really get you in the problem solving mode to like further do harder stuff. I think that's when you start to like learn object oriented programming.
Sure.
And when you learn what classes are, what objects are, that makes it easier for you to develop more higher level projects. And if you just want a list of projects, you can just Google list of Python projects to do and try and work them out one by one. There is no point of learning a lot of Python if you can't apply it.
Yeah.
And by doing several different projects of different domains, you will learn different things. You will learn what works for this system, what doesn't work for this system. You will know how to tweak your approaches. And programming is like maths. The
Yeah.
more you practice it, the better you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I'd recommend anyone to learn
Yeah.
programming.
Yeah. So like take small steps, learn the basics, and try to focus on using them, implementing them.
Yes.
That's I think very important. And this is actually very true because even in say fields like data science or analytics, um, you know, it's all about like using those basics, those basic functions, aggregating the data, and then using some mathematical operation, and there are all like pre-built functions these days available, right? Yeah, we are moving to low code, no code environments these days. So I think you are absolutely right that one has to focus on getting the concepts right, the basics right, and practice on those small things which are really important. So I completely agree. And yeah, I think these days we have a lot of competitions, online competitions. We have sites like HackerRank, Kaggle, a lot of things to go ahead and test yourself, throw yourself out in the waters and see how you are faring against others. And then don't get disheartened if you're not doing well. It's just that you have to pick up yourself and find out where the gaps are and work on those gaps. I think that's pretty important. And the beauty of programming is that it doesn't demand you to come from a particular stream. It helps if you are from a computer science background or from an IT background, or if you have done your degree courses. But then you don't really need to. I have seen a lot of people who, particularly here in the UK, where they started programming at the age of 50. They were doing something else completely different, and then they just decided to retire from that profession and embrace programming because they found it really interesting. So yeah, I think it's a good thought that you mentioned there. So do you also focus on things like so some of these new age domains, like analytics in your degree courses or in your school curriculum, or how what do you want to say about these new age domains? Technologies.
Our school curriculum, it doesn't particularly talk about machine learning or data science or blockchain or stuff like that. I think the reason for that is because since these are domains that are constantly developing, publishers don't really like to put it in because they don't know whether it's good or bad. I also think there is like a sort of complexity around it. I mean, sure, machine learning algorithms can be implemented by teenagers. I have seen a couple of really cool projects that were done. But at the same time, there is a certain amount of complexity that a 16-year-old can handle. And this is like, you take the mean of the population.
Yeah.
So they don't really talk about this, but they do encourage using these things in our coursework. So it is encouraged that students go beyond the curriculum and they explore further stuff.
Okay. So it's still not a part of your mainstream curriculum, but then they do want you all to sort of understand what these new domains are as a part of your coursework. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's because I think some of these things are really, really critical as you step out of the college. I mean, I'm sure like you do have skill sets like, we call them as vanilla skill sets, where you are a Java developer, or you are a database developer, or a database administrator, and those profiles, which anyways are needed across the industries for the day-to-day operations, to keep business as usual. But at the same time, if you are looking at technology disruption, where is the industry heading towards? We're talking about things like Web3 today, and metaverse, and so a lot of focus is actually coming on these things, and I think it's just that we are now moving at a phase where yes, you do have those profiles, those requirements which are required to run the businesses, but though that demand, according to me, is kind of is there, but it's limited, as in you need those people. Maybe n number of people are required to run those operations, but then if it's about finding out new opportunities, doing something different, growing yourself in the industry, then I think it's really critical to sort of embrace these new things as industry. And blockchain, as you mentioned, is another thing that is rapidly evolving. Cryptocurrencies, a lot of things are happening in cryptocurrency world these days. It's the volatility, and I don't know if you follow cryptocurrencies, but the recent crash that happened.
FTX.
Yes. So again, very, very interesting times we are living in today, and for people like you who are just going to start their journey, I think it's really, really critical to kind of understand these areas as well. So I think it's important.
So on your point about vanilla skill sets, I kind of agree with that, because I think I was actually very pro AI for quite a long time. I was saying that AI is good and it's a brilliant source and we should all be using it. But then I saw GitHub Copilot, and I saw that GitHub Copilot could solve lead code questions. And for those of you who don't know, lead code is this programming practice tool, which it's basically job interview questions.
Yeah.
And if AI can do that now, what is stopping artificial intelligence in the next 5 years or so to program full-fledged applications?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And it is quite scary if you think about it, because all these people who call themselves Java developers or who have this basic knowledge like I do, it'll be obsolete now.
They will be.
And these are very fascinating times. I mean, we live in an era where machines can draw better than humans.
Yes.
So it is, and they're also very volatile times. The metaverse might seem like the metaverse seemed very promising a couple of months ago when Mark Zuckerberg announced it. But then if you look at the total number of active users now on the metaverse, it's about 13. But who knows that we're making fun of Mark Zuckerberg now, but who knows, maybe in the next couple of years when we're all hooked on it, it'll be a different story altogether.
And then adding on top of it is the economical challenges that come in as well, right? So we are seeing a huge cost of living pressure, and many of these tech companies get their revenues from advertisements, and when advertisements dry up, then they have to sort of lay off people as well, and this is typically what is happening today. So yeah, I think it's I don't know really like how do I sum up this situation, but you got to reinvent yourself all the time. You might just be successful,
Yeah.
for a given period of time, but then there might be a time when things will not go right. You might just fumble, but then you have to pick up yourself again and reinvent yourself, look at your skills. Um, and then again jump in the market. But I think one of the things that I also feel is that you have to also be a little bit domain oriented. That sort of always is helpful. For instance, if you are working in payments, then even though you are working as maybe a data architect, or a DevOps engineer, it's always good to understand the business, because that gives you that added dimension of taking things um, the way they should be when say you are in a critical situation. Let's say you are running into a production release, right? And you have a release coming up over the weekend, and some of the people from the business are not available, and there is a situation where you have to take a decision. It's always helpful in these kind of scenarios if you have the domain orientation. This is one example. This is more like an extreme example, but then even in your day-to-day things that you do as a part of your job profile, it's always good to have the domain flavor. Understand what the business is. A lot of times what happens is I see people like they focus only on the technological aspects, even though um, and their point is like, why should I care about the domain? Why should I know what a settlement system is or what a authorization system is and payments? There are people who know about it. Just tell me, what do I need to develop? And that to me is not the right way of looking at the things, because the real essence of a good product comes in on the table only when everybody in the team understands what they are building and why they are building. What would happen if it is not built in the way that it should be? So I think that's another thing I wanted to add here, that you got to embrace yourself, you got to reinvent yourself, but then add that domain flavor as well into your profile. That's going to be a key differentiator in today's times. So I completely agree. So what additionally do you do, Rishi, outside of your school curriculum? And I think have you been able to get admissions in the college, or are you still in the path of applying and universities?
I'm in the path of waiting for my offers.
Oh,
So
okay.
waiting for the university to respond back.
Got it. And what do you do outside of your school curriculum, your hobbies and your interests?
So I have a passion for debating.
Okay.
I like to debate. I like to discuss topics of a variety of things, not only just tech, but politics, policy issues, economics,
Sure.
anything really. Uh, I also like to write.
Okay.
I have a blog.
Oh.
It's been quite inactive for a while. I haven't really published anything. What else do I like to do? I do play sport, but I'm not particularly the best at it. It's more of a social experience than anything. And that is about it.
Okay. So you blog on technology, or just random blogs, or?
They are quite random. I did make a blog about. I made a blog about chaos theory. I
Okay.
made a blog about programming.
Nice.
I made one about learning to program. That is. I made two about artificial intelligence, and I have one that's coming up,
Mm-hmm.
and that one's essentially supposed to be about, what do you call it, business, and what I understand from what is sales, what is marketing, what is product market fit and stuff like that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think you should continue blogging. I think by the sounds of it, it looks like you are publishing some really nice blogs. And if you don't mind, we can probably put a link in the description of this video as well for our viewers to kind of review the blogging work that you're doing as well. But it's really good to know about that. And listen, I really wanted to thank you for taking out your time on a Sunday morning. Probably talking to me might not be the best of the ways you would want.
Oh no, it was very exciting.
But
very exciting.
I really wanted to kind of talk to you because when we connected on Twitter, and I came to know about your project work in payments, and I was like, yeah, I mean, this is something that I should probably share with the viewers. Many of the people who are of your age or in college might be benefiting out of it. So thank you for taking out time, Rushi, this morning. And I wish you all the very best for your future endeavors, for your college next year. I hope you get the offers soon and from the universities that you want to go to. And I'm sure you will get it. I think you have a brilliant future ahead of you. We need a lot of people in technology like you going forwards. So all the very best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rishi.